12. Charlotte Douglas International Airport, Charlotte, North Carolina. Charlotte Douglas International Airport, once one of the busiest domestic hubs in the eastern United States with hundreds of thousands of connecting passengers each year, has become surprisingly quiet. Night flights are decreasing. Many airport restaurants have shortened their hours due to a lack of customers. A bustling transit stop has become a place where employees now leave even before official closing time. Charlotte thrived thanks to its role as a strategic hub, a stopover connecting north to south, east to west. But 2025 has delivered a harsh reality. Americans are simply flying less. Both leisure and business travel have declined due to rising costs, frustration with poor service, and frequent delays. Airlines are prioritizing larger airports like Atlanta, Dallas, and Chicago to consolidate passengers and reduce operational costs at mid-sized hubs like Charlotte. The old hub-and-spoke model no longer aligns with new traveler behavior. There are fewer connections, a stronger preference for direct flights, and a drive to keep trips cheaper and shorter. Charlotte isn't less capable, it has simply been sidelined by the very system it once relied on. It is like a large bus station with fewer routes, still lit but quiet, missing the energy of travelers. An airport that was once the crossroads of the South now feels like an alley blocked off on Google Maps. If a hub like Charlotte is also losing its lifeline, what does that mean for the cities you can no longer fly to directly? Have you ever had a layover in Charlotte? Do you still see it on your flight schedule now? 13. A national picture of decline from JFK to Honolulu, from Charlotte to Salt Lake City. The airports that once symbolized movement, connection, and the American dream are now deserted even in the middle of summer. This isn't just a decline in tourism. It's a quiet warning that trust in the system is fracturing. Do you see this happening where you live? Is the airport near you as busy as before, or is it slowly sinking into silence? If you have thoughts on this, please share them in the comments below, we read everything. If you find topics like this important, please consider subscribing and turning on the notification bell so you don't miss future videos. All data and observations in this video are drawn from public reports, independent research, and user feedback. This video is not intended to make absolute claims, but to open discussion and encourage viewers to verify information and share their own real-life experiences. Number 8. Illinois. Once known for its industrial might and urban development, Illinois is now facing a stark new reality: widespread food insecurity. In 2025, Chicago has become a glaring example of a system in collapse. Over the past 3 years, more than 40 grocery stores have closed in the city, with most closures hitting low-income, predominantly Black and Latino neighborhoods. Entire neighborhoods on the south and west sides have effectively become food deserts, with residents forced to travel more than 5 miles to find a fully stocked grocery store. That distance becomes a serious problem when public transportation is unreliable and car ownership is out of reach. In these communities, dollar stores and gas stations are often the only places selling food, mostly processed items with little nutritional value. Even when groceries are available, they're becoming increasingly unaffordable. Statewide, food prices have risen by nearly 12%, with milk, eggs, and baby formula seeing the highest increases. Smaller cities like Springfield and East St. Louis face their own difficulties, as local grocers struggle to operate amid staff shortages and erratic supply chains. Food banks are working at full capacity but are still unable to meet demand. Some have had to reduce the size of food packages or even turn families away. Schools are trying to help by expanding free breakfast programs, but teachers continue to report children arriving tired and hungry. Community-driven efforts, like church pantries and volunteer delivery programs, are trying to help, but they fall short of solving the crisis. Despite these warning signs, the state government has yet to offer a comprehensive strategy to address the issue. Instead, Illinoisans are left to depend on one another, uncertain of when or if meaningful support will arrive. This grocery shortage is not just a logistical failure. It's about dignity, access, and the basic right to eat. When one of America's most populous states can't keep its shelves stocked, it signals that something far deeper is going wrong. Number 7. Florida, known for its sunshine, tourism, and rapid population growth, Florida in 2025 is now also known for a worsening collapse in food access. Since 2021, more than 1,500 grocery stores have closed across the state, with rural areas and retirement-heavy communities bearing the brunt. Many of these shutdowns happened quietly, without widespread media attention. But the consequences for those left behind have been devastating. In counties such as Levy, Hernando, and parts of the Panhandle, residents must now travel 30 to 50 miles to reach a fully stocked store. For elderly Floridians on fixed incomes, that kind of distance is simply unmanageable. Many seniors report skipping meals, delaying medications, or even rationing pet food to get by. And this isn't just a rural problem. Urban centers like Miami-Dade and Orlando have also seen supermarket closures in low-income neighborhoods. The result? Communities are left with only dollar stores and small convenience shops, which offer few fresh or nutritious items. Food inflation in Florida is among the highest in the country, hovering around 10.4%. In some cities, like Fort Lauderdale, the increase is even more dramatic. Retirees who moved to Florida for a peaceful life now face daily stress over choosing between groceries and rent. Food banks are under strain, and in some counties, mobile food distributions are the sole source of nutrition for hundreds of families. Local authorities have acknowledged the issue, but state-level responses remain disjointed, delayed, or underfunded. As Florida continues building luxury condos and expanding tourism, the number of people lining up at food pantries is also growing. Behind the glossy image of beachfront living lies a sobering reality, an escalating grocery crisis that is leaving many Floridians hungry and forgotten. Number 6. Texas. Texas has long taken pride in its independence, resilience, and status as a cornerstone of American agriculture. But in 2025, that sense of pride is being tested by a worsening food access crisis spreading across cities, suburbs, and rural counties. In just 2 years, more than 800 grocery stores have closed across Texas, with the hardest-hit areas being small and mid-sized towns, from El Paso to Amarillo. In some rural counties in West Texas, there are now no full-service grocery stores at all, forcing residents to travel long distances just to obtain everyday necessities. Without public transportation options and with fuel prices remaining high, many families simply can't afford these trips. As a result, communities are turning to dollar stores, gas stations, and convenience shops for sustenance, places that offer little to no fresh food and instead stock shelves with highly processed, low-nutrition items. Even in large urban areas like Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio, the crisis is spreading. Low-income neighborhoods are especially affected, with major chains pulling out due to concerns over theft, rising operating costs, and workforce shortages. Grocery deserts are expanding, and what used to be occasional food insecurity is becoming a permanent reality for millions of Texans. In rural towns, elderly residents are some of the hardest hit. Many rely on neighbors or charitable organizations for food deliveries because they are physically unable to make long trips. Churches and mobile food pantries are doing what they can, but they're severely under-resourced. In some counties, the number of people relying on food assistance has doubled since 2023. Texas's farming communities are also struggling. Despite being an agricultural powerhouse, many small farms are shutting down due to water scarcity, high production costs, and corporate consolidation. Produce grown in-state is increasingly being shipped out to other regions where buyers can pay more, leaving local communities with less access to what's grown in their own soil. Inflation in food prices is hitting Texas hard. In certain areas, the cost of basic items like bread, milk, and fresh vegetables has risen by over 15%. This has forced many families to make impossible choices: pay for groceries or cover rent, utilities, or medical expenses. Local governments have raised the alarm, but action at the state level has been slow and disorganized. Proposals for food infrastructure investment have stalled, and emergency relief programs are bogged down by bureaucracy. Meanwhile, communities are left to fend for themselves, with volunteers forming makeshift delivery networks and mutual aid groups just to keep people fed. Texas, once considered the backbone of American food supply, is now facing an unprecedented test. The question is no longer whether the shelves will be restocked, but whether anyone will be able to afford what's on them, or even reach the store at all. This growing crisis in the Lone Star State is a stark reminder that food access isn't just about agriculture or economics. It's about equity, infrastructure, and human dignity. And for many Texans in 2025, those basic pillars are crumbling. Many Texans now drive between 40 to 60 miles round trip just to buy groceries, a burden that not everyone can afford. Even in rapidly growing urban centers like Dallas and Houston, food deserts have quietly expanded in low-income neighborhoods where major grocery chains have withdrawn. Store managers frequently cite rising security concerns, persistent staffing shortages, and unsustainable operating costs as primary reasons for their closures. Paradoxically, Texas remains one of the leading agricultural producers in the United States. Yet, much of the food grown within the state is either exported or priced too high for local residents to afford. This contradiction is fueling growing frustration and deepening anxiety. Food banks across the state are overwhelmed by demand. Feeding Texas, the largest hunger relief organization in the state, has reported a staggering 60% surge in food requests compared to just 3 years ago. In several rural counties, churches and grassroots volunteer organizations are the only consistent sources of food distribution. The impact has been particularly harsh for seniors, migrant laborers, and low-income families, many of whom now rely on gas stations and fast food restaurants as their primary sources of nourishment. Local officials acknowledge the severity of the problem, yet efforts at the state level have either been delayed or insufficiently funded. While programs like mobile grocery units and subsidies for independent retailers are underway, they are nowhere near enough to reverse the worsening trend. For millions of Texans, the long-cherished dream of self-reliance is clashing with the grim reality of bare pantries and empty refrigerators. In a state famed for feeding the nation, far too many of its own residents now go hungry. Number 5. New York. New York has long been considered a place where everything is within reach, every cuisine, every product, and every convenience. But in 2025, even this global epicenter is feeling the pressure of a growing grocery crisis. In the last 2 years, the number of operating grocery stores in New York City has declined by 14%, with the majority of closures concentrated in the Bronx, East Harlem, and Central Brooklyn. While these areas have long faced economic challenges, the current wave of shutdowns is pushing them into full-blown food desert status. Many residents now walk over 30 minutes or take multiple bus routes just to reach a grocery store, and when they arrive, they often find shelves understocked or completely empty. Prices are rising steeply. In certain boroughs, a gallon of milk averages over $6, and cartons of eggs are priced at $5 or more. Basic staples like bread, rice, and cooking oil are frequently either unavailable or rationed per customer. The crisis isn't limited to the city. In upstate regions like Rochester and Syracuse, independent grocers have closed, and national chains are scaling back operations due to labor shortages and theft. Rural counties face similar challenges, with many residents forced to depend solely on gas stations and dollar stores for their food needs. Food banks statewide are operating well beyond their capacities. Some are now requiring appointments scheduled weeks in advance, while others are turning away late arrivals due to limited supplies. Even school meal programs are under pressure, with several districts struggling to maintain consistent ingredients for student lunches. While affluent neighborhoods retain access to a variety of food options, the disparity between those who can afford to eat well and those who cannot is growing rapidly. For a city, and a state, that prides itself on diversity, access, and abundance, this new reality is sobering. When grocery shelves go empty in New York, the rest of the country takes notice. Number 4. California. California has always been regarded as a land of abundance, renowned for its fertile valleys, world-class agricultural output, and year-round growing seasons. But in 2025, many Californians are coming to terms with a stark new reality. Food access is no longer guaranteed. Grocery store closures, supply chain disruptions, and soaring prices have combined to create a widespread food access crisis across the state, even in areas traditionally rich in agriculture. In the Central Valley, which supplies a large portion of the nation's produce, many working-class families now rely on food pantries, despite living and working amid fields that feed the country. Cities like Fresno, Modesto, and Bakersfield report that more than 1 in 4 households now experience monthly food insecurity. Meanwhile, in metropolitan hubs such as Los Angeles, Oakland, and San Diego, major grocery chains have shuttered dozens of locations in low-income, high-theft zones, creating massive food deserts in communities already grappling with housing shortages and inflation. For many residents, purchasing basic groceries means walking long distances or depending on unreliable public transportation. And even if they reach a store, there's no guarantee that essentials will be in stock. California's food inflation rate has reached 13%, with products like eggs and baby formula becoming even more expensive. In Silicon Valley, where incomes are comparatively higher, even middle-class families are cutting back, opting for canned goods and skipping fresh produce entirely. Several causes contribute to the crisis. Port delays in Long Beach and Oakland have slowed imports, with containers held up for weeks due to labor disputes and shipping backlogs. In addition, the state's ongoing multi-year drought has decimated local crop yields, leaving thousands of acres unharvested. High fuel costs have further increased transportation expenses, costs which are ultimately passed down to consumers at checkout. The result? Communities where avocados cost $3 a piece and heads of lettuce are kept behind locked cases. In a state synonymous with innovation, opportunity, and prosperity, the idea of large-scale food insecurity once seemed inconceivable. But for millions of Californians, it has become a harsh and unavoidable reality. The grocery shelves, like meaningful solutions, remain disturbingly empty. Number 3. Oregon. Oregon has long been hailed as a progressive state, one rooted in sustainability, environmentalism, and tight-knit community values. But in 2025, those ideals are being put to the test by a fundamental challenge: securing access to food. From coastal towns to inland desert regions, Oregonians are facing a steady wave of store closures, escalating food costs, and failing supply chains. In rural areas like Coos Bay, Grants Pass, and La Pine, grocery store shutdowns have left some counties with no full-service supermarkets. Residents now travel between 40 and 60 miles to buy essentials, provided they have access to a vehicle, fuel, and time. Even in Portland, where food variety once flourished, people are now confronting shorter supply, higher prices, and shrinking options. A significant part of the problem lies with declining port activity. Oregon's ports have experienced a 28% drop in throughput over the past year due to labor disputes, logistical issues, and reduced cargo volume. These problems mean longer wait times for restocks, higher retail prices, and empty shelves that remain unfilled for weeks. At the same time, Oregon's local agriculture is under siege. In the Willamette Valley, farmers report dwindling harvests due to drought, heatwaves, and erratic weather, all symptoms of worsening climate change. As a result, communities are relying more on delayed and expensive imports while local produce becomes scarcer. The statewide food inflation rate has reached 13%, with rural towns seeing even higher jumps. In places like Eugene and Salem, food banks are no longer considered emergency relief. They've become part of many families' weekly routines. Volunteers report a surge in first-time recipients, including school teachers, healthcare workers, and small business owners. Though Oregon's state government has rolled out a number of food assistance programs, critics argue that the rollout has been slow and entangled in red tape. For a state that has long taken pride in leading the nation on progressive policy and environmental stewardship, the ongoing grocery crisis feels both contradictory and urgent. And for thousands of Oregon families, those values won't matter if there's nothing left to put on the table. Number 2. Nevada. When people think of Nevada, images of Las Vegas often come to mind: flashing neon lights, endless buffets, and a sense of abundance. However, in 2025, that image stands in stark contrast to the reality many Nevadans are facing. As the state continues to recover from the economic disruptions of the pandemic era, it now grapples with a quieter yet equally devastating crisis: lack of access to affordable food. Food insecurity has spiked throughout the state, particularly in urban areas reliant on tourism. In Las Vegas, food bank usage has risen by 35% compared to the previous year. Long lines now stretch around distribution warehouses, even in the sweltering summer heat. And it's not only the unemployed who are struggling. Many individuals previously employed in hospitality, hotel workers, rideshare drivers, entertainers, are now facing fewer work hours, stagnant wages, and increasing housing costs. In neighborhoods such as North Las Vegas and East Las Vegas, several grocery stores have closed since 2023. Store owners cite escalating theft, high security expenses, and narrow profit margins as the primary reasons for pulling out. As a result, residents are left relying on convenience stores that often lack healthy options and mark up the price of basic goods. Nevada's geographical limitations worsen the situation. Without direct port access, the state depends heavily on deliveries from neighboring California. But with ongoing delays at the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach, Nevada is frequently last in line for shipments. This has led to sporadic restocking and a statewide food price increase of more than 11%, with dairy and meat products experiencing even sharper hikes. Nevada might be best known for its casinos and lavish tourism scene, but just a few blocks away from the Las Vegas Strip, the lights are dimmer, and the grocery shelves are bare. For many families, hitting the jackpot isn't winning a slot machine, it's finding enough food to last the week. Number 1. Washington State is often admired for its tech innovation, natural beauty, and economic vitality. But in 2025, it has also become a focal point of America's growing grocery crisis. A place where the tension between global trade and local struggle is on full display. In Seattle and the surrounding counties, food prices are among the fastest rising in the nation. Basic items like milk, bread, and eggs have increased by more than 12% year over year. The root of the issue lies largely in port-related disruptions. The ports of Seattle and Tacoma have faced repeated shutdowns and slowdowns due to labor disputes and international shipping delays. These interruptions have left store shelves empty, delayed product restocks for weeks, and forced major grocery retailers to ration everyday necessities. In King County, shoppers report having to wait in lines to buy limited quantities of milk or baby formula, often walking away empty-handed. But the situation outside urban areas is even more dire. In rural eastern Washington and on the Olympic Peninsula, entire grocery stores have closed down, leaving communities dependent on food trucks, local cooperatives, and charity organizations. Some towns receive food deliveries only once every 2 weeks, and if that delivery is delayed, there are no alternatives. Food banks in cities like Spokane, Tacoma, and Everett are overwhelmed. They're seeing increasing numbers of first-time visitors, many of whom are fully employed but struggling under the weight of rising rent and child care costs. Washington's booming tech economy has created pockets of extreme wealth, but that prosperity hasn't extended to working families at the checkout counter. With inflation climbing, transportation snarled, and wages failing to keep pace, more households are being forced to choose between paying for rent or putting food on the table. State and local governments have pledged to respond, promising emergency assistance funds and tax credits for low-income families. However, implementation has been slow, and many families say relief hasn't arrived fast enough. The evergreen state may be rich in resources and revenue, but in 2025, it is growing alarmingly poor in one of the most basic necessities of all, food access. That concludes our deep dive into the 10 U.S. states where grocery store shelves are being emptied faster than they can be restocked. From bustling cities to quiet rural towns, Americans are waking up to a sobering new reality, one in which access to food is no longer something that can be taken for granted. This crisis isn't just about rising prices. It's about the physical distance to stores, the fragility of supply chains, and the quiet collapse of systems we once relied on without question. Did your state make the list? Are you witnessing these changes in your own community? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more in-depth explorations of the challenges that don't always make the headlines, but affect us all. Until next time, stay informed, and stay prepared.